Manguddummaan qormaata ta'uu danda'a. Waa'een manguddoomoo haadha keessanii isin yaaddessee beekaa? Waa'een abbaa, abbeeraa, eessuma, adaadaa, akkoo, akaakayyuu fi abaabayyuu keessanii hoo yaada isinitti ta'ee jira? Dhimma manguddummaa fi manguddootaan wal qabatu irratti gaafii kamuu qabaannaan dhaabbanni Senior Linkage Line isin gargaaruudhaaf qophiidha. Dhaabbanni Senior Linkage Line dhaabbata isteeta Minnesota guutuu keessatti dhimma manguddummaa irratti tajaajila kennu yoo ta'u, dhaabbilee tola ooltummaa kanneen akka tireelisii fi ejentiiwwan biroo wajjin ta'uudhaan manguddootaaf tajaajila garaagaraa kennuudhaan beekama. Dhaabbata keenya biratti manguddoonni kamuu tajaajila geejjibaa, tajaajila mana jireenyaa fi inshuraansii fayyaa argachuuf hin rakkatan. Gargaarsi dhaabbanni keenya manguddootaaf godhu kana qofaa miti. Nyaata manatti namaaf dhiyeeffamuu fi oolmaa manguddootaa ilaalchisee odeeffannoo barbaachisu manguddootaaf barbaaduun gargaara. Gargaarsi dhaabbanni keenya manguddootaaf taasisu manguddoota biras dabree maatii manguddootaatiif boqonnaa sammuu kenna. Odeeffannoo dabalataatiif 8-333-243 irratti bilbiluu hin dagatinaa.
Dhaabata Senior Linkage anas na gargaaree jira, isinis koottaa itti fayyadama.
This is the future of Africa. In this program, we focus on Horn of Africa's political, economic, and socio-cultural aspects. Let's share our vision, hopes, and professional critics. All views are stemmed. Stay with us. Mr. Girma, welcome to this program.
Good to have you, mate. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Girma was a founder of Oromo Cultural Institute, and he has been actively involving in Oromo community activity and related issues over the past 10 years. He is an advocate of the Oromo people. Welcome again, Mr. Girma.
Thank you. Good to have you here.
Great. We'll be starting our discussion, given your background, involvements, and so on, quite with a number of community-related issues. And I see you on every occasion here in Minnesota and everywhere. How do you see the value of diversity, inclusion, and equality? Because you intend to advocate these things over the past 10 years.
It's a great and big question, and diversity, inclusion, and equity is very important components of 21st century's society. If you are not open to others, you cannot make living, literally. If you open to others and respect others identity, and be inclusive and creating opportunity for those people who are not looks like you, makes you a better person, a better society, and you gain so much in many ways, because we are living in 21st century, like I said, very diverse and globalized world, a world that needs everyone's participation, everyone's inputs, so that we all live together with a big harmony and creating a successful society today and preparing opportunity that exists today and will exist tomorrow for the next generations. That is what inclusiveness and diversity needs. Some people, they think they are pretty much inclusive and welcoming others, and this kind of issues exist all over the world. We think we are welcoming others while we are not really are. We think we are equal with others. In some areas we are not really equal, and we are not equally getting access to resources that we need, access to very important issues, peace, all those kind of things. While some others are really living in very hostile situation, others talking about peace, and other talking about like inclusiveness, where you are already marginalizing some people from social, economic, and political arenas. You just keep saying we are inclusive. That doesn't work.
Thanks so much. As you know, the value given to these important pillars of life, like diversity, inclusion, equity, and equality in countries like US and other countries is, high level, but back home there are some challenges. As you know, in Ethiopia we have for about 85 and over nations and nationalities. The same is true in Oromia. Can we relate to that? And what some of the challenges, for instance, is the problem of or difficulty of addressing diversity, inclusion, and equality back home. How do you see this?
Well, in general, diversity, inequality, and inclusion issue is all over the world, like I said earlier. This issue exists in Oromia, in Ethiopia too, and the government trying to maybe, talking about the inclusive way of living, or inclusive, or inclusively welcoming everyone from any walk of life from that country. The truth is, there are still certain group of people that hold the power and hold the opportunities that not accessible to others. This is the problem. If you say if you are inclusive to others, including others, you have to prove that others are getting equal access to everything. If not, you are not inclusive. Diversity is the same too. For example, in back in the day, maybe in Ethiopian government, the Orthodox Church is the only church accepted by the state, and the others are just outsiders. They are not, as if no Muslim exists in the country, as if no Protestant exists in the country, as if no Waqf live in the country. That is maybe changing over time. There is a little progress that we can see today, not really to the level that you can see or tell, yes, the government is inclusive government and nurturing the diversity. Diversity should be in all aspects.
Thanks so much. Let's dive into the critical issues in this regard. I see you communicating with a number of actors here in Minnesota, for instance, different communities. You have been everywhere, and in relation to this, do you have any advice to the African communities, East African communities, and the Oromo community in general terms to integrate to the existing system and perhaps advance their future? And how do you look at this, for instance, issue of integrating to the existing system?
Well, the USA is a great country. Maybe the best country that I know to open for diversities. In some other country, you cannot see that kind of diversity everywhere. However, given my engagement with a number of communities in Minnesota, I can see that there is a better opportunity for diversity and a better future in this country, in particular in the state of Minnesota. The state of Minnesota is, very diverse. And a lot of people live in this country, in this state. A lot of African descent live in this state. As Africans, maybe we have, I should say maybe as African Americans, we have very similar challenge, and we have very similar opportunities too that we should work on together while we are, blaming others, we have to see in ourselves. We have to understand what we need. We have to understand what we ask. We have to understand who we ask and what is our role as a citizen. As a citizen of Minnesota, we have a right to exercise and demand what exists for others. Understanding what exists is a job that needs to be done first. Number two, once we know what exists, so we have to understand and define what we need. We need that. And how we can ask matters as well. How consistent that we should go, instead of just sometimes we have asked something and we are not really follow up. That is a big issue that we have as a society, especially a people of color have that kind of issues that need to be addressed, as far as I know. The other is always thinking about victim mentality in victimizing ourselves, criminalizing others while we are not doing enough for ourselves. This starts from home. This starts from my children, from my wife, how fair I am at home, how I am teaching my kids how they need to be fair for others, how they need to be prepared for the challenge and opportunity that exists in the future. If I am not preparing them well, I cannot blame them in the future because I haven't done my homework as a dad. So the same for the community. The Oromo community of Minnesota, has been working so much to tell about Oromo and Oromoma to their kids. Is that enough? To me, it's not enough. We have to create so many activities, so many opportunity how they can learn about their roots, culture, history. A lot of kids do not know about their parents, how they have been, living in Africa, how they end up here too. A lot of parents, maybe they don't tell. In 2015, 2016, we have been teaching Afan Oromo in Augsburg College. And back then, we have about 40 kids. Randomly, I was asking, where do your parents come from? To one of our students. He said, I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. If he doesn't know where his parents come from, if he was answering a honest answer, that is a big question to our community. They have to tell the truth and only truth to themselves, to their kids, and to others too, who we are as a people. What happened at our home country, Ethiopia, Oromia, and why we haven't stayed there? We have to tell them.
Yeah.
And sometimes some kids even questioning why we send money back home too. They are right. Sometimes we don't have enough here, but we are trying to support others. It is good. It is good to support others. However, we have to make sure that we provide every single thing that our kids need in this country. This country is their country. And this country has so much opportunity for their kids. We have to prepare them for that opportunity. We have to have them understanding the reality of the world. Our world is not enough. The parents and dads' world is not enough. We have to expose them to more world, more opportunities, more challenges. If not, we are missing so much and we are not living at the true status of the reality of the truth that we are living in. We cannot deny, while we are denying the truth, we cannot tell others to tell us the truth.
Thanks so much. We'll be moving our pendulum
Yeah.
to what we are observing here and sometimes back home. Let me take you to what's happening back home. I personally believe that in Africa in general, East Africa particularly, Ethiopia, OROMIA and so on, peace, democracy, good governance, education, if you like, could have been central to what's happening in that country, because economically poor countries should focus on that instead of, for instance, immersing themselves into war and so on. How do you feel about that? What's happening back home?
Without education, there is no such good governance. Without peace, there is no good governance. There is no education. Without peace, there is no economic development that you want to do. And without peace, we cannot live a stable life. We're always trying to save our life instead of focusing on some developmental or educational things. In fact, these components are interrelated and connected to each other. If we don't have a good government, we may not think about democracy. Without democracy, we cannot have a good governance. For example, election. As a person who living in this great nation, I believe in election. When we come to maybe some African countries, there is no as such honest and good election be conducted. So it's very important that people have a choice to select or elect their leaders, as GADA system does. Our GADA system has give its people to elect their leader, right? When they are elected, it has to be very transparent, very democratic, and everything be done by the people and for the people. When we come to Africa, everything done by those people who have in power or for those people who have a gun. We are in the 21st century. We cannot afford fighting and grabbing power. We have to negotiate. The youth need to stand for these kind of things. Of course, the youth is like a water. Like you have to manage the youth. If you're not managing or educating the youth, in the next maybe 5-10 years, things can be changed, and those youths are not able to hold the country that they love to stay in, or they cannot bring justice for those people who seeking justice, for those people who are seek a development. They may not get enough person or enough educated person who equipped with skill, experience, and education. All this needed for a given countries to thrive to the better. If not, we are failing behind, and the country has to understand that if they are not educating, or their education system is not strong enough, things are getting worse, and they should blame their own leadership, and the people has to stand and request for a good education, a good governance, a good democratic process that makes peace and stability for a given country.
Great reflection. These things are interrelated, as you said, education, peace, democracy, good governance. And within good governance, there are pillars like accountability, transparency, participation, issues of rule of law and justice. These things are there, including autonomy, the right to exercise your autonomy, and these are very important elements. But you tend to focus on education, and I'm interested on that. I believe that you did visit Ethiopia and Oromia before a couple of years, I guess. And what did you observe in that regard? What change did you observe in terms of education, culture, if you like, people's value, and so on?
That's really a very good question. Before I answer that question, I'll go back to the previous question. The 5 things that we just talked about, like democracy, good governance, and education, and peace, and all those kind of things are important. At the same time, all this for what? For the citizen. Sure. The citizen has to have a good awareness why we need this. Often on time, we just blame leaders. The citizen has a role to play. The citizen has to have, a right to exercise, to question. It's not only about electing and holding them accountable for whatever they do is so important in civilized world. If I elected you to the office, if you promise so many things, a number of things, often on time, a lot of elected officials promise a lot of things, they don't deliver much. However, the citizen need and have a right to question why they haven't delivered what they have promised when they were in campaigning trail. So it's so important. We have to understand that African leaders need to teach their constituents why they got elected and the role of the citizen.
The challenge is over there because there is no free and fair election, there is no accountability, there is no transparency. People they don't participate in major activities. These are the challenges. Actually, the context is different. And as you said, yes, if election is there should be accountability, there should be transparency, and I do agree on what you are saying.
To transit to the second question, you just asked what I have observed when I was in Ethiopia, and I love.
Was it in 2018? Or
I went to 2018, 2019 as well. I love the country so much, and I love my people, and I really, when I, try to advocate for my people in this country, I meant it.
Yeah, I know.
I from the bottom of my heart,
Yep.
I have such a big passion for my people, to thrive and to the better, not just to live better, and not to, get a peace, not to just feel a peace, just to live in peace and die in peace. Today, in that country, especially in 2018, I went back after many years, and I didn't see a lot of things. And I went back 2019 because we have Finfinne Recha. It is historical to me. I love my culture and the stuff like that. I organize quite few people, and we travel as a group, and we celebrate that historical Recha celebration in Finfinne.
It was.
Yeah, it was historical. It was emotional moment to me. And when I see all that kind of people and how they love their culture, and they want to protect Oromuma and the Oromo values and Oromo culture. So I'm all about Oromo culture, and I love it. And I also seen that I went into too many different part of Oromia, and I have seen that the education system has been failed miserably. And the leadership that I have seen in 2018 was different than, I feel like it went back to Wayane Arena, because I think their mentality was there in 2018. In 2019, they kick back into their past leadership style. Nobody can talk to you well, and they see diasporas as a threat, and they see the change has been made by them and for them, and the election that they have been talking about wasn't, I 100% convinced that when I come back from Ethiopia back then in 2019, I convinced that the election will not take place. Like their former masters leadership, I believe, and I have seen actually, they have been, torturing other political parties, and imprisoning, and closing their offices, especially kafaos, and dividing others. Bringing some political party who has been outside and come in, and then they divided them. They bring half of, maybe few of them to their side, and provide them house, provide them car, provide them maybe money, and they have all those kind of things, and they have good communication with the new TPLF leadership era. I have seen that way. The new one, it's not the previous one, because most of them are from the area, and however, they are being groomed in the way that they serve exactly the same as TPLF. And they are very hypocritic, and they are very, I have seen dishonesty, and I have seen a lot of changes in a year, just 1 year. So what I have been earned as a hope in 2018 has been gone in 2019. And one good friend of mine was telling me that the election will not gonna happen in this country, he said. And he doesn't want to leave the country. Either they kill him or imprison him, he want to take it. He tested that. He tested all those kind of imprisoning and maybe tortured.
Well, okay. Let's be more specific. I heard that you have been talking about the education and the values of people, and perhaps cultural transmission. What we have in the past, forget about improvement, have been deteriorating over time, particularly in terms of education, in terms of the value of people, and cultural elements. The way you brought up, the way I brought up, you know what, the values and the cultural aspect of some of the things are very, very powerful, but these days they are not there. And did you observe that? And how do you see that?
Absolutely. The education system, as I said, it has been died to the level where you can say there is no education in the state of Oromia. I have seen a school that supposed to teach computer, and they don't have power. I have seen a school that has a blackboard that has a hole this much. Okay, it is not state or like government problem. What about the role of the parents? What is the role of the teachers to initiate some resources and change those kind of simple things? I think I don't blame, for everything the government. The society the parents and the teachers fail to work for education improvement. That is what I have seen. Of course, the government hand is in there. I asked one of the teachers, why you guys don't do this simple thing? Why don't you ask the students and bring some money to buy a blackboard? He said, when we do that, they criminalizing us as OLF, and we cannot do anything. If we do, we got tortured, we maybe thrown in the jail, and we want to live. I didn't believe that, but that's what he said. And culture-wise, the culture, as a matter of fact, I was in Ethiopia when I think, according to some resources, the government trying to take away Jawar Muhammad's security guard one night, and then they refused, and he has to say something on social media, and the country became like lawless in a matter of hours. So I was there on that night at that time, and I have seen how the youth are not really grown up in the culture that we grew up. When we grew up, we listened to teachers, we listened to our parents, we listened to elders, we listened to our leaders, peers, listen each other, and we respect leaders. We respect especially elders and faith leaders. Now, all this has been gone, I think, because I have seen in the city that I born and raised, lowland, on that day, you cannot even imagine that kind of lawless
Terrible.
activities takes place, and nobody want to stop.
I think that's a good reflection, and particularly in terms of education, I did a number of research in the school environment. There are a number of factors, web of factors over there. School leadership is there, community participation, the school environment by itself, it has been deteriorating, and the teaching learning process has serious problem. And education was more politicized, as you said. Now, let's go out of this and let's look at the general aspect of the current challenges in Oromia. Oromia is like in war, and there are some positive moments like peace agreement in the northern part of the nation, but it seems that the government has immersed into war again in Oromia. How do you observe this in general terms?
To be honest, Oromia is bleeding. It's bleeding not now, not a year ago. It began in 2019 when I was there, even a little before, I think 2019. So even back then, some part of the country do not have any means of communication, road, and public service. The government has been denying all these allegations, and it is so bad. And even the government is a new government. Although we say a new government, it's not new government. We all know that, because this leadership has been in the past leadership, even in top leadership positions. They are a part of the atrocity and crime and bleedings and injustice that happening in Oromia. It should be, of course, in Ethiopia as well. They are a part of it. They emerge as if they don't know anything about it, as if they are clean from any crime that has been happening in the last 20 plus years. That's wrong. Totally wrong. They need to be accountable for the atrocity and crime that had been committing to their own people back then. And they have to learn from that. We were hoping that they learn from that past and move forward for the better and lead the country from that, bad history to a better history. The truth is, what happened, even to the worst history that country has. Okay, how many people have got killed in the last, of course, 2 years, with its own government, be killed by its own government with drone. Drone never been used in that country before. Now they are using a drone in Oromia too. To be honest, that's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. We need to de-announce. It's not because we are Oromo, because we are human. Because it's wrong. They made a negotiation with TPLF. They have to do the same negotiation with OLA leaders. The Oromo people got killed by this government, maybe higher in number than TPLF. Maybe they trained to do that back then. They are just practicing now. That's what I sense.
Thanks so much. Before we conclude our discussion, that's kind of problem created because of the ongoing war. And in that country, particularly in Oromia, there's war, there's drought, there is, I can say, famine, there is inflation, there is corruption. Every problem is there. I'd like to see reflection in relation to inflation and corruption. These are the two very cancerous type of problems in that country. Do you have that kind of observation, or?
As a person who serves the community, I overheard a lot about corruption, about inflation. It is beyond my imagination, to be honest. Corruption exists even back then. Now it's getting worse. That's what I heard.
It's getting system.
Yeah. And the government that saying the TPLF has been corrupted, they have been oppressing, they are doing the same thing now today as we speak. It is so hard to get a single service from a single office without any bribing or something like that. That is wrong. It's wrong, we have to say it. Because it's wrong, we have to say wrong. It's true. And inflation is beyond somebody's imagination as well. I just feel bad how ordinary people make living today in that country. And so the government has to come up with a good inflation controlling mechanism and focus on development instead of war, and put that money to some public service. If the public service fail, the country is at the verge of deteriorating to the point where they cannot financing its government. So this is the reality of that country, and I hope they come up with a good idea and be inclusive and be understanding where they are going, what they are in, and where they should go and lead this country. The country is not small country, and it's a big country, and satisfies every community's need is important. Every community needs three things in common: education, peace, and justice. When these three things in place, people can feel better and work more.
Great advice. Would you mind extending that advice to the Oromo people and the international community? What's your advice to the international community and particularly to the Oromo people?
First, I would like to advise the international communities to understand the magnitude of issues in Ethiopia. Some international communities, they have their own agendas, not for Ethiopia or for Oromo. They have their own agenda to do in that country. So the country has to, think about it, to whom they are partnered with. And the other issue is the government and the citizen. The government need to be democratize every aspect, if possible. And the citizen have to stand for themselves. They have, before they demand justice, they have to prepare for justice too. Before they demanding democracy, they have to understand what democracy takes. And they have to think about leadership. They have to understand what leadership needs. Leadership needs everyone. Tolerance, accepting others. What if you don't like to be treated in certain ways? You have to understand that the other person doesn't want that kind of thing as well. If you need freedom, others need it. If you need democracy, others need it too. Freedom, justice, all this goes together. What we need to have is understanding and working together and understanding what the future holds for everyone.
I would like to give you one final opportunity if you have some final comment, particularly in relation to the unity of the Oromo people. I'm going to give you a split of second.
Oh, okay. Oromo has to understand Oromo has Oromo people first. Oromo people need to stand for itself. Be honest for each other. Don't be fake. Don't take a part or partisan, supporting others and fighting each other. That is wrong. We have equal opportunity, equal challenge, equal destiny. So we have to work together. We have to accept each other. We have to understand the magnitude of problem that exists is jeopardizing our children. If you love your children, please work what is right for them tomorrow.
With this, we conclude our discussion with Mr. Girma Hassan today. It was a very inspiring discussion. For those of you who have vision, professional critic, and ideas, the door is open, and you can contact me through my Facebook. My name is Hussein Kadir. Mr. Girma, profoundly thank you so much.
You're very welcome, and I'm very happy to be here.
This is the future of Africa. In this program, we focus on Horn of Africa's political, economic, and socio-cultural aspects. Let's share our vision, hopes, and professional critics. All views are esteemed. Stay with us.